Oh man, whoa! There's a pre-show on here that I didn't put on here.
Yep.
Daniel, that's gonna have to be just the regular pre-show because I got
Got another pre-show.
I got a few other things here.
I think we should lead with mine and then go into your stuff.
Okay.
Be my guess. So
Well, but first, do you notice anything different about me? I know you already noticed it, but you notice anything different?
I mean, you're wearing a hat that's very yellow, extremely yellow.
It's not yellow. It's orange.
Is it orange?
It's orange.
The lighting's kind of weird in here. It's not a high CRI light. So
Okay, I just want to make sure that you saw my hat.
I did see your hat. What's that logo on it?
It's a McLaren logo
Okay.
because I'm a big F1 guy now.
Uh-huh.
This is my Lando Norris hat.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect to get additional hats for other drivers, or is Lando Norris your driver?
Well, I was kind of curious to see how Carlos Sainz did this year, but he's becoming less interesting as the year goes on, and I don't like the Ferrari hats.
I see.
But I like the McLaren hats.
More into the McLaren hat.
Mm-hmm. You know, Daniel, we probably don't talk about F1 enough on this show.
You think that's right?
I mean, there's so many cameras.
There are a lot of cameras, and there's drones.
There's like so many cameras.
Yep. Well, if you ever want to talk about F1, we can talk about F1.
Sweet. Okay, this isn't working with my headphones on, so I'm actually going to take the hat off.
But after all that,
I had to leave it on for the bit.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you can tell me about. Okay, so that was pre-show. Okay, and now you can do your pre-show.
Okay.
Play the jingle.
Yeah, the pre-show jingle. So we talk about Isotope RX a lot on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We've mentioned it several times. I think it's a great tool, and I've enjoyed it a lot on our videos as well as on the podcast. And when we don't use it, we definitely notice that like sounds are weird noises are louder, that sort of thing. So really good tool. Yeah. But the topic,
yeah or yada yada. I kind of cut off there.
I guess yada yada is probably more correct.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, more grammatically correct. So this topic is the ultimate showdown of Ultimate Destiny, and that's because Isotope RX is a new challenger, and I thought it'd be interesting to mention that. And that new challenger is this 12-week-old puppy that's sitting next to us that's probably going to start whimpering in the middle of the show. And we're going to find out if Isotope RX can pull out that noise.
She looks pretty asleep.
She does look pretty asleep, but I mean, I've seen the topics we have for the show today, and it might be a long one, and I don't know if she's going to be asleep by the end of it. So
I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So this has nothing to do with that like meme video and the song from like 2002?
Well, I mean, it was a reference to that, and
okay.
That's a pretty awesome meme video. But no, it's just that.
Do you think that like people still remember that?
I don't know if they do or not.
I can still hear the song in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. We should probably put the link in the notes if anybody doesn't know what that means.
I mean, we should just leave it in obscurity. Don't
you think so?
It doesn't need to come back.
All right.
There's too many weird references in that thing.
Probably true.
Okay.
What's next?
So I think I'm going to buy that Synology.
Which one? We talked about a couple. Because B&H is running the mega deal zone today.
Yeah, exactly. And just to clarify, we are now officially in pre-show territory.
Okay.
We are beyond pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
If you just so you know where to put the jingle in.
Yeah.
It's so I really want the 5 bay.
Mm-hmm.
Like deep down, I just know that I need 5 bays of storage.
Which I think is the 1522.
Right, the 1522 plus. There's 2 pluses, right?
I think there's only 1 plus.
Because it's like an underscore David Smith thing.
No, I think it's only 1 plus, like the phone manufacturer.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. That makes way more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there is also so that's the 4 bay, 8 gigs of RAM, blah blah blah.
The 5 bay, 1522 is 5 bay.
1520 is 5 bay, and then they have the 823,
1821.
Well, no, that's the 8. That's the 18 bay.
That's the 8 bay. 18 bay would be ridiculous. I would be here for that. That'd be so good.
Okay, but there's one that's a 4 bay that's basically the same thing, but with 4 gigs of RAM instead of 8 gigs of RAM and 1 less bay of storage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that one in particular, normally $100 cheaper, whatever, go for the 5 bay. But right now it's $150 off, $120 off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like $480 for a 4 bay Synology.
Yeah.
And I double checked my 12 terabyte, which is 10 point something free, my 12 terabyte hard drive that has all my videos on it on my server, 888 gigabytes free.
I mean, you're like maybe 2 to 3 video projects away from filling that up.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been looking at doing the Synology and just kind of like holding off. And I got to do all these server upgrades. I got to replace my switch because I ran out of ports and all this stuff. And but a big part of that is doing this storage upgrade, and I feel like this is my opportunity. I need to jump on this sale because it's probably not going to be on sale till November.
Yeah. These things typically go on sale Black Friday, but other than that, you're just waiting for something like this.
Well, usually it's twice a year, and so this feels like a good opportunity to go ahead and pick one up. But it's a 4-bay, not a 5-bay, and so I'm in a lot of turmoil right now.
Yeah,
because I want more bays.
But I think the 8-bay one. I got me saying 18-bay. I think the 8-bay one is also on sale. Not as much, but it is on sale. Think about how many bays that is. That's twice as many bays.
It's like twice as much money too. It's like $850 after the sale.
It is.
Which, I mean, that's a lot of bays. But I feel like maybe 8 bays it's not too much because I really see myself as an 8-bay Synology kind of person. Mm-hmm. But maybe, we start with 4 bays.
You think you need to just dip your toe in the water a little bit?
Well, no, but like it's just too much for right now.
Okay.
So probably. But I kind of like looking for some advice here of like, do I just wait until the 5-bay goes on sale, or do you think I go for the 4-bay, and is that going to be good enough?
I mean, I feel like, so for one thing, I think the 4-bay is newer than the 5-bay. It's like a newer variant.
They released at the same time, but they gave it the next model year number.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a 4-bay. Of course, I wish I had more drive bays. I have a stack of drives that I've replaced that I just basically can't use, but...
How big what's the biggest of those drives?
Maybe I have an 8 terabyte in there, I think. But regardless, I do. Of course, I wish I had more, but I've gotten pretty far on the 4-bay, and now you can get drives that are 16 terabytes, 22 terabytes. You can get pretty big drives. I feel like you could get by with the 4, and if you ever didn't, by the time you run out of space on that, I feel like the storage is just as expensive as the Synology unit, and so you could always just replace the Synology unit and sell the existing one.
Yeah, I guess that would work.
I don't know. I think getting a Synology is better than not, and so like I feel like waiting for a sale. Like who knows when that's going to go on sale?
Yeah, probably a good point. I think I'm just going to jump on it, but I'm trying to like figure out exactly what to do here because I have a 12. I've an amalgamation of drives that are not the same size. I think I have 2 4s or 2 6s. I can't remember. No, I think I have 2 4s, a 6, and a 12. So like it's not going to work very well to try to like mix those together.
Not in a kind of RAID
I have to buy 2 big new drives so I can copy everything to the Synology, and then I'll load in a couple more drives. Mm-hmm. And so it's like if you're buying drives right now, 16 terabytes is the sweet spot because 18s are more expensive and 14s are more expensive, and then you go down and it's like your dollar per terabyte starts getting a little weird.
Yeah.
But right now, with this sale, there's some 22 terabytes that are like $35 a terabyte instead of $45 a terabyte. Ooh. And I'm like, maybe I should just get these 22s, but like, I don't know if they're officially supported by Synology, so I have to admit I want to lose terabytes.
Yeah, you might need to do a little research and see if they're planning on supporting those or what the deal is.
But it feels like going for 22s now instead of 16s is probably the right call.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of extra space.
I mean, it's going to give me like another 6 terabytes.
Yeah. With the way, assuming you want to do some kind of RAID configuration for redundancy on Synologies, it's basically that you end up having to replace 2 drives to get an increased capacity.
Isn't it like it's called SHR1? SHR1, SHR2. That's Synology's like RAID.
Yeah, Synology hybrid RAID. It's very similar to RAID 5.
But you can get like a smidge more.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to go into detail about how they do it. They partition the drives into smaller blocks. I am actually a little curious. What do they do? They partition those drives into smaller blocks. So you have like an 8 terabyte drive. Mm-hmm. They'll split it into smaller chunks. So I don't know if it's like 2 4 terabyte chunks or what. But they do something like that and treat each of those chunks kind of separately in the RAID configuration instead of it just being on a drive by drive basis. And so I don't know the math exactly of how that works out, but there are certain configurations of drives where you can have, fewer drives or unmatched drives and still make it work. Because like in a traditional RAID configuration, you basically have to have all your drives be the same size.
Right.
Like they all have to be 8 terabytes or they all have to be 12 terabytes or whatever. With Synology hybrid RAID, you can have 2 12s and 2 8s, and it can make that work.
Right. Yeah, it's like if they were all the same, then it's going to be exactly the same as RAID 5.
Yes.
But if you have like 2 16s and 2 20s, you're going to get 4 more terabytes for
Exactly.
an SHR versus a RAID 5.
Yeah, exactly. And the difference between SHR 1 and 2 is that SHR 1 is 1 drive fault tolerant and SHR 2 is 2 drive fault tolerant.
Ah,
Yeah. So I have mine in SHR 1. I have a 4 bay Synology. And so, if you're tolerant of more drive failures, that basically means you have less space. And so I wouldn't do SHR2 unless I had, an 8 bay or something to where I could have tons of drives in there. Because otherwise, like, you'd have all these huge drives and you wouldn't really have that much space.
so if you went with 4 20 terabytes, that gives you 54 terabytes of storage using SHR or RAID 5, which I feel like that's not a lot, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on like 13 terabytes right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting up there.
I worry that that 54 is just not enough. And I'm like, maybe that's future Lucas' problem. But I just don't want to back myself into a space corner.
I think it's probably future Lucas' problem, personally.
Fine, I'll buy this stupid
I've
Synology.
been replacing drives in mine for a long time. I started with like four terabytes, and now I've got a couple of 16s in there.
Because it takes like a week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that bad. But basically, like, for people who don't know, if you have one, you can pull a drive out and then put in a new drive and basically tell it to rebuild, which is pretty much the same thing as like, this drive just failed. You recover all my data, and it copies things around and gets it back into a good state. And then you can keep doing that to replace more drives.
This was like helpful, but not helpful.
Yeah. I just gave you more questions.
I feel like the answer is I just should buy the 4 bay and forget about the 5 bay. But do you think that's the right call?
Well, I mean, I think you're running out of space now, and running out of space slows you down and makes your projects, kind of harder to get done because you end up spending time like, let me go and like try to remove some old files, or like, what can I move around to get off this drive? And like, I hate dealing with that stuff. I really like having it. I think the 5 bay would be better, but if you have been unwilling to spend the money on that, then I think the 4 bay at the discount is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I guess my other option was to cold storage all of our main project files that are like I'm keeping because our contracts are like, we'll hold on to these files for whatever 6 months or a year, I forget how long. And I could always buy like a 10 terabyte hard drive and whatever. But that's like almost the cost of the Synology.
Yeah, and it's like, how much of your time do you want to spend copying files around and dealing with all that? Maybe that's what you want to do.
It's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I just really don't. Anyways.
Cool. Well, I'm curious to see what you come up with. I saw that B&H Mega Deal Zone today and clicked through 30 pages of the deals to see
too many deals.
To see what was good. And I sent you that one and a few others. I think the others were the small rig V-mount batteries were on sale, and the Portkeys PT6 monitor that I've talked about on this podcast is also on sale.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, and you were talking about how your monitor was failing. So
it's true.
I'm just saying.
There's some decent like CF Express deals too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so worth checking out. I mean, by the time people hear this, it's long over.
Oh yeah, well over.
Yeah, so if you didn't know about it, you missed out. But
there you go.
A lot of deals.
Yeah.
That's we're bringing the breaking news in this podcast.
Yeah, that's what we do.
The Mega Deal Zone was 3 weeks ago, and we're like, guys, super good deals on there.
Boy, you sure missed out.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
Daniel, I have a non-sanctioned segment for you.
Oh, no.
Right?
We talked about those recently, and you were listing off all these segments, some of which I had forgotten about.
Oh, no, wait. This one is an official segment.
Oh, man.
Sorry. I have an official segment for you today.
In the triangle of diffusion segments?
Yeah, you got it. One of the triangle. Okay. That's right.
Oh, what do you got?
Okay, so I finally got around to watching that Civil War movie, that A24, that was like their most expensive movie ever made about American Civil War and photojournalists, people doing photojournalist stuff.
Right. I think we mentioned it, and yeah, I was curious about it whenever I heard it had cameras in it, but haven't seen it.
I was super pumped about watching that movie. So it was shot on a Venice. For some of the shots, they used the chicken cam, which is interesting. And they also shot some of it with an A7 III, but not like a ton. Mostly shot on a Venice. our protagonist was using an A7R or something, and I was like, well,
was this? No, he said it was made by
it's an
A24.
A24, but I was like, Sony probably gave them money because they're using Sony cameras all over the place.
Yeah, otherwise we know they would have been using a Nikon.
Well, speaking of, so the other protagonist in this movie shot all of her photos on film. Just like she's like, I'm gonna be a war photographer, and I'm gonna shoot everything on film because I'm a baller.
That would be you if you were in that situation.
I guess so. So she has this old like Nikon FE2 or something, old film camera, and it's just like a little. I was like, come on, what are you doing?
A little much.
But I guess you know what, you don't have to change the batteries.
That's true.
Okay, so a few points here. There was a scene where they were just kind of at a refugee camp while they're kind of going from point A to point B. And she's like, talking about how she has this whole film development thing down on the go, and she's sitting there, and she has a Patterson tank where she's developed, like, she's gonna put her chemicals in to develop the things, and she has some film that's already like clipped up on this little wire, like
a clothesline.
Like not like a clothesline. Did you ever play that game where you have like balls on a string and it's like this trapeze thing, almost like tiny PVC pipes, and you have to chuck the balls. It's supposed to wrap around the thing.
Yeah, kind of like a wire ladder sort of situation.
Yeah, like that, but like with like half-inch, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, tube piping that, and then it's just like clips holding up her film that's just like blowing in the wind, getting dust all over it while it dries.
Well, that just adds to the wartime photographer effect, Lucas.
Clearly, and she was like, you know what the trick is for developing your film on the go with your developer or whatever? And she pulls like out of her waistband a bottle of developer, and she's like, body temperature.
So are you going to try that next time you develop film?
I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I guess I would. I mean, like, if you get it up to like, I mean, your body's like 98 or whatever, 97, but you're not gonna get that up to 97. It's gonna be like probably like 85 degrees, or maybe like 88 degrees. That's gonna like double your development time. You're just gonna be flipping that Patterson tank for freaking like 15 minutes. And she's like, flips it a couple times. She goes, okay, we're just gotta wait 10 minutes. And I was like, you're gonna wait 10 minutes, but you're also gonna invert it every 30 seconds, right? And then they just start talking, and I'm like waiting.
You're panicking. You're panicking about how she hasn't flipped that thing in a while.
Don't forget to invert your Patterson tank. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then like,
was that what took you out of the movie?
No, I thought it was interesting. I was like, maybe that works. I don't know. I've never tried to develop in the field by sticking chemicals in my pants. Next time we go on a trip, though.
Next time we're on a camping trip, you can be pulling out your wire rack to dry your film.
It's a lot easier to not have to X-ray your film when you just develop it on site.
Yeah,
using your pants developer.
Absolutely, your pants developer. Yes.
Okay, and then she like takes the thing, and she has this like contraption where she like slaps her phone on it, like cranks the film through the thing, and is taking pictures of her film with her phone.
That seems pretty cool.
And I was like, boy, this is.
Although it's gonna be low res.
I mean, like, it's fine, but it's just like film community stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's a surprising amount of detail to put in like a normal movie.
Yeah, I'm sure people were wondering like, how did she do it? And I was like, that all checks out. Like, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really interesting to see that in a movie.
Yeah. It's pretty obscure.
Like, just a little bit. Okay, next thing. So the main protagonist person had like two Sony cameras, one with like a 150 to 600 on it, and one with what looked like a prime lens. And I was wondering, when you're shooting in war photography, do we follow in like the 70 to, the 24 to 70 and the 7200 rule? Do you want a really long lens? Should you be just shooting on primes? Maybe it's more durable. You're not getting like cruffed in your externally focused zoom. So that's my question, Daniel. Whenever you are a war photographer, what lenses are you using?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would go zoom just because that's how I shoot events, and I guess it feels like kind of a similar thing.
It's like a big event.
Yeah.
It's just like a big event for you.
Pretty big event. I'd probably be wearing all black so that I'm, not getting shot. So that's that's similar to what I do for events. So I think that's what I would do. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the advantage to a prime too is low light, right? A lot of war happens at night.
Sure.
How you can get those pictures if you got a zoom on there.
Good point.
So I think my vote's zoom. But what do you think?
I don't know. I think you just shoot it. You just bring your 35 millimeter prime and rock and roll.
Yeah, just bring your X106 and call
There
it
you
good.
go. Sure, why not? Bring all the cameras. You're gonna break so many cameras anyways.
Yeah, that's a profession that's hard to understand. Like being a war photographer.
Yeah.
Seems terrifying.
The other thing, the lady who's shooting on film is shooting. She's shooting manual focus, man.
Of course.
How do you manually focus when like it's literally a war zone?
Well, what if you have a Lumix S9 with that 26 millimeter f8? Then you barely have to focus anything.
I mean, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's my question. Like, are you just zone focusing?
Seems like you'd have to, right?
You're just like, what's the? That's more of a landscape photography thing, which is just like F8 and be there.
I don't know though. I mean, that Sony bro out there with his autofocus, like maybe just trust autofocus.
No, but you're shooting this thing on film.
Yeah, if you're
probably
shooting on
gonna be
film, you're
manually
not allowed.
focusing. I feel like the answer is just you got to zone focus.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I can't imagine like carefully lining up a shot. So.
Yeah. Well, it's a good lead-in for our actual topic today because there were a ton of new camera releases literally yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer of releases. Honestly,
Mhm.
a lot of new stuff.
Yep. I was like super duper pumped about the Nikon Z6 Mark III.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even going to get to that today.
Because it got overshadowed by other releases.
Other more important cameras.
Mhm.
There was a film camera that recently came out, and
Of course.
we have to talk about it.
I mean, it's this podcast, so I know you're right, but I don't have to like it.
It's the Instax Wide 400.
So it's not even just a film camera; it's a Fuji camera. Okay, what's up with it? Why is it that big?
Okay.
This thing's huge.
Oh my god, it's enormous.
It looks like a Photoshop failure. Like that camera looks way too big for that.
It
that
is.
picture.
It is huge. Every time I look at a picture of someone holding it or someone like having it with a strap, I think, that's a small person.
Oh, look at that kid using that camera. It's adorable. Nope, that is a full-grown adult man.
Probably. Hard to tell, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, like the film that these things use is, I mean, it's like 62 millimeters by 99 millimeters. That's straight up medium format. I know that it's not. I know that it's like a Polaroid, right? Shake it out kind of thing. You're not actually shooting on like a 6.9, but you're still technically shooting on a 6.9.
Yeah, like sense, quote unquote, sensor size is the same.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I sometimes I forget about how big, you're shooting on a film that's big enough for you to hold in your hand, so it has to be large.
I mean, it's like the size of a sheet of paper almost.
I mean, this is basically 4x6.
Yeah.
Right. Like imagine a 4x6 photo. That's how big the camera has to be. It's kind of huge, kind of cool, but okay. So this is the Instax Wide 400. This is the replacement for the Instax Wide 300, which is the cameras that shoot the quote unquote wide Instax film. Which, if you're curious about how wide that is, it's 3x2.
That's So, what are you telling me with when you say 3x2? Like that's just aspect ratio, right?
Yeah.
So when you say wide, like you're
Well,
thinking about like a aspect ratio type.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out. I'm like, oh, cool, this thing's wide. How wide is it? Well, let's take a look at the lens. 95 millimeters. And then I was like, well, I guess I have to do the math on that to figure out, like, put that in terms that I understand. What's the field of view? Not listed anywhere. Okay, like maybe it's a wider film. Yeah, I mean it's 3x2. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just wider. I think that like
your normal way people say like they mean it like wide angle lens, right? They don't.
No, they mean it. They mean it by like normal Polaroids are square.
Okay.
Normal Instax are square, and then they have a smaller, and then they have a wide, and the wide is 1.5 times the width.
I see.
Which is wider, technically.
Yeah, it technically is.
Okay, and if you're curious, if you do the Pythagorean theorem and do the math on the crop factor, which I feel like crop factoring something this big down to 35 equivalent is a little stupid, and we should be using something more like field of view, but they didn't provide field of view, so we're just going to go with rule of thummy crop factor stuff. It's basically 35 millimeters, which is technically wide.
It also makes sense for something that's like an instant camera. It's a pretty reasonable focal length.
Yeah, pretty reasonable. So this is like $150. It's gonna
I
sell
mean,
like hotcakes,
I,
Daniel.
I saw this announcement, and looked at the camera, and I like the design of the camera. I mean, it's kind of it looks like it's like a flat color. Like it looks like it would be rubberized. I don't know if it is, but it looks like it's rubberized. And I kind of think it looks cool, and it's big, and big things are expensive. That's just a rule. Everything big is expensive, and I thought it was gonna be more expensive than it is. So
Whenever I put it on here, it was mostly as a gag because I actually just want to spend the entire episode talking about the Pentax 17. It's way more important to me. But then I wrote down all of the stuff about the Instax, and I was like, I guess I'm just going to cover all this today.
I mean, might as well. Instax is still like what 40-something%
Oh,
of
yeah, it's
Fuji's business.
Well
It's-
over half their business.
Yeah.
Okay, some really cool features here. It's like all their Instax stuff. It's zone focus, right? 3 meter. There you have a setting for whatever, like 3 feet to 10 feet for people. Then you have a setting that's like 10 feet to infinity, and then this one adds a macro mode in which you have to add another like little lens piece on top of your lens, flip it to macro, and then you can shoot like 10 inches away or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So they added that. That's cool. They added a kickstand because you can set it on a table and then you can like prop it up a little bit, so you can take like groupies.
Is that what they called it? Do they call it groupies, or is that your term?
I don't know, Daniel.
That answers that.
It's got a self timer on it.
I
It's
guess
like,
you need that for your groupie.
yeah. When you say it, it makes me sound stupid. you turn the like the little dial thing and then click 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 10-second self timer.
Nice.
I mean that's basically it. It's a 4 to 10 seconds. It's cool.
Yeah. How much does it cost per shot?
Oh, geez. Okay, so I was trying to figure out maybe like what's a rough aggregate. You can buy the wide film in packs of 20.
Okay.
You can get a 5-pack of 20 packs for
So-
$100.
So 100 frames, $100.
$95. But yeah,
Okay.
it's basically $1 a frame.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's expensive, but it's maybe not that bad.
Well, I mean, you don't have to develop it.
Yeah,
There's that.
that's true. You think you'd ever buy an Instax camera?
No.
Really? Why
No,
not?
I don't think it's for me.
You'd
I-
rather develop film?
I came close. I was like, these are super, super cool. I like the ones that are half digital, half now, where you can take the pictures, but then also pull the thing.
Yeah.
But now that I'm like a big film guy,
Mm,
I would rather just shoot film.
yeah. And then develop it yourself and all that.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this seems cool. I bet they'll sell them.
It's like 616 grams. It's really heavy.
That is really heavy. I mean, it's big though. It kind of makes sense.
It's heavier than like an X106 by like 200 grams.
It does make it. Yeah. It does kind of put it in perspective.
It takes 3 AAA batteries.
That's better than it could be, because it's kind of like, it wouldn't surprise me if it was like, yes, this takes 4D batteries.
What if it did? That would be insane.
Just like a flashlight from 1997.
Oh my gosh. I want that. I want an Instax that takes D batteries. It's like the grip. You
Yes.
just roll like 2D batteries in there. Oh man.
Be perfect.
Okay, let's talk about what I really want to talk about, which is the Pentax 17.
Yeah, I saw this one announced, and I think I sent you the link to it. I don't know why I even bothered. I'm sure you had already seen it. But
You sent me the link and I was like, please.
You're like, I'm getting Google notifications for this. I already saw that.
Man, I've been following this one ever since they started that Pentax Film Project account on Instagram. Oh boy. I thought this would pair really well with our conversation on Pentax as a company, because we never look back to the Pentax
Yeah,
conversation.
That's right.
We were going to talk about things like the K3 and DSLRs and them starting in like 1921. I didn't do enough research, so we're not even going to get to that.
Oh,
We're
okay.
basically just going to talk about this super, super sick camera.
Well, I don't know much about it, so you're going to have to tell me what this does and why it's so special.
I'm just so pumped. I wrote next to Pentax 17, woo, but with,
Yeah.
with like 20 O's.
A lot of O's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. This is a film camera.
I see you're waiting for applause. It's not coming. Feel like we've talked about film cameras
Okay,
before.
So Leica did a re-release of the M6 in 2022, and that camera came out originally like 2008 or 2006.
Okay.
And that was a re-release. That Kodak has like the Ektar cameras that they sell. They're like a little half frame, super cheap. You can buy them for $35.
Mhm.
But if we're talking major camera manufacturer, we're talking like Sony or Fuji or Canon or Nikon or whatever, brand new, developed from scratch film camera. This hasn't existed in a really long time, Daniel. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
This is Pentax saying we are so far behind in the market that we got to get the money out of the niches wherever we can. And we see that film is growing. Let's see if there's something there.
It's kind of interesting to see, somebody putting money behind film, because I like the thing that comes top of mind to me is thinking about how recently, Panasonic released the GH7, which like the frame of that was basically the same as the G9 II, and we know that they had used the same frame from the S5 Mark II on the G9 II just to like save money.
Body, yeah.
So what I'm getting at is like, on one hand, you've got companies like Panasonic, like we're doing some smart things to cut some corners, save some money, and like these are like big releases that people are excited about. And then Pentax is over here making a film camera, like spending R&D money making a new film camera in 2024. It's a pretty bold move.
I'm just so excited about this. Part of like the narrative that they've had around this thing is we're trying to not forget how to make these things. And so we're trying to get all of that knowledge of like, how do you develop a film camera? How do you make all these choices? And trying to teach our younger engineers and like reignite that knowledge within our company so that we don't lose. And that's kind of like the narrative they've been giving. We're going to like talk through all the stuff on this thing, but it's so obvious, like every decision around this is perfectly tailored to exactly who they're trying to sell it to, which is like you see the people buying like this huge market of Instax cameras, and like that maybe like that's more instant, so maybe that makes more sense. But people are getting more into film. Harman is out here making a whole new freaking film stock. What? Brand new emulsion. Film is back, Daniel. And Pentax sees it and they're like, okay, let's make a camera that appeals to people, maybe not the enthusiasts. Like the enthusiasts are probably going to buy this anyway because it's super, super sick, sort of. But I feel like they're like, okay, we see all these youngins, these Gen Zers or whatever. Let's make a camera that makes sense for them to want to get into film.
Sure.
Because they'll see, like, you see all the cool shots on Instagram and stuff. And I feel like this camera, if it catches, is just going to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens. And so like they basically they set it out. I mean, they said it whenever they released this. So like this is for people who are just getting into film, to make it accessible, something that they can get repaired if it gets broken, something they can buy new. They don't have to like do a ton of research on a bunch of esoteric cameras from 1983 or whatever. I mean, if you want to, that's always there for you.
So I understand the repairability. That makes a lot of sense. But how did they make it more accessible?
Okay. All right. We're going to talk through all the things in this thing.
Okay.
I'm going to go through bullet by bullet. First, $500.
I mean, feels pretty expensive for a film camera. You've bought a lot of your older ones for way cheaper than that, right? So like it's got a little bit to justify at that price.
How much does an AE1 go for right now? Do you know?
No.
I know that to get mine serviced, it's like $250.
That's pretty high.
But I think you could probably buy one for $100, $200.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like if you're buying used, sure. I feel like 500 feels right. It's kind of expensive, but you have to cover the development costs and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of like a total aside. Pentax doesn't sell film, and companies right now really want you on that subscription.
Yeah.
They're just like, come on, subscription
services. That recurring revenue.
You have to have that recurring revenue. When we went digital, that just went away.
Yeah.
I don't understand why more camera companies aren't going for film, because they could just sign you up for a film box.
Well,
ship it to your house every so often.
If you don't make film, it's like this whole new world of, chemistry, and I mean, the manufacturing would be totally different than cameras. So it seems like a pretty big investment.
Kodak could totally do this. They just make a subscription box for film.
Yeah, well, they could. I mean, I'm just saying Pentax. Maybe that's why they haven't. But
Pentax needs to get into making film. I don't know if Pentax has ever made film.
I don't know either.
But what if they did? That's probably actually way too complicated. Well, it's not too complicated. It's just like a whole nother, it's like a completely another thing.
Yeah, man, that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
Okay, speaking of film, ISO 50 to ISO 3200 on the dial. So it doesn't have I think it was called DxO support. Is that right? You don't know. Some cameras will detect the ISO of the film. If you have a film that has the ability to detect the ISOs, you just pop it in there and it detects it, so you don't accidentally not set it to the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a advanced camera feature. This camera, they went away with all the advanced features. Like if you bought a Nikon film camera from 1997, it has like autofocus and it can auto wind the film and it can detect the ISO for you and like has all these like super modern features. This has none of those things, and they totally did it on purpose for like the analog and the tactile. And I'm like, this makes complete sense.
Yeah. So on the film camera, you have an ISO dial, but I mean, you're basically, the function that's serving is that it makes the metering work correctly.
Correct. Right. So this is not. There isn't really a way to shoot this thing in manual. There isn't a full manual mode, which for some people feel like it's a miss. I feel like this makes sense, especially if you're trying to get people into film photography that maybe aren't even into photography originally. Like they've been shooting with their phone. Now they want to get into film. Oh boy, if you're learning the exposure triangle on film,
that's going to be expensive for one thing.
Yeah, we've talked about it before too, of like learning how to take pictures and like learning your exposures and all that sort of thing. Like it takes pretty iteration circles,
Right.
And the gap between I shot this and I see the picture and remembering what you did to shoot it is so long with film. It takes forever to learn it.
Yeah.
So I think that with the target audience, not having a manual mode makes sense, which means you have to have an ISO dial to tell the meter what speed the film is.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
This does have a exposure dial. So you can set it to +2 or +3, I think, and then -3. So you can have it in its auto mode, but you can have it push, which effectively means that you could shoot 12,800 film if such thing existed.
Because you could set the ISO dial and then do the EV boost.
Exactly. You could set your exposure to go up or down, which is nice if you're going to push or pull the film and you don't want to have to like do the math on like what ISO do I set it to. You could stick your Cinestill 800 in here and then set your exposure to be like +1 if you want to push it or stop.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Good.
Or you can get some like 1600 or 3200 speed film. And I mean, I guess this goes to 3200. Or if you could find like 6400 speed film. It'd be like crazy grainy.
That's true.
Or maybe you could buy some of that like super low speed stuff that's like ISO 5 or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, I feel like 50 to 3200 is great. A lot of the point and shoots that I've been kind of like looking at and the one that I bought kind of cap out at like 400 ISO, which is frustrating.
Okay.
Because
so you get a little bit more flexibility with this camera.
Yeah. To me, like being able to go to 1600 is something I would think is like a baseline for a new film camera. 3200 is really nice.
Nice.
That means that it has a decent, like new modern light meter in it.
Sure.
You know, something that didn't exist 20 years ago. Okay. It has a manual winding lever. Awesome.
I mean, I feel if your goal is to shoot film, you know, and try something new, I feel like all these automatic features kind of take away from the experience almost. So I think it makes sense.
Yep. So you get a little advanced dial. We haven't mentioned it. This is a half frame camera.
Oh, that's pretty big. I mean, it's not pretty big. It's pretty small, but that's a pretty notable aspect of it.
Yeah, that's kind of huge. And some people think, was this a miss or not?
Yeah.
To me, I love it.
And is that because you get more shots for the same cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like
so especially if you're experimenting, that seems pretty nice.
Yeah, if this is a novel thing and you're doing it for fun, you're not trying to like get the best images ever, I think half frame makes total sense. 35 millimeter, like if you want the best like quality out of film, if you shoot like a really good stock low ISO of like medium format, like you shoot like a 6.7, you can get amazing resolution and detail if you have the right kind of scanning equipment.
Yeah, it's like the whole signal chain has to be good.
Yeah, exactly. From scan all the way down to however you shot it. With 35 millimeter, it's only going to ever be so good, and like your scanner has to be so good. It's not going to have quite the same resolution and noise of even like a modern digital camera now. And then cutting that in half just makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So if you're hoping for like the cleanest, coolest image, like the cleanest image, a half frame camera is asking a lot out of your film stock. But if you're just trying to get the vibes,
The grain's probably a plus at that point.
half frame is the way to go. So half frame is not quite APS-C. So this is 24 by 35 is your normal film. You cut that 35 in half, it's 17.
Okay. 24 by 17.
Yep. Which Pentax 17.
Oh, okay. I get it now.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Nice.
It's actually 17 plus 16, so it's a little more than half. It's going to be 17.5, but who's doing the math? Anyway, 24 by 17. which is, Super 35 is like 24 by 18 or 25 by 18. APS-C is like 25 by 16. So this is not quite APS-C, right?
Yeah,
It's not
seems
really
pretty close, but maybe not
3 by
exactly.
5. It's like a little more square.
Mhm.
It's closer to square, but it's not really square. It's still rectangular. What this means though is like if you're holding the camera up like you hold up a camera, you're gonna be shooting portrait. And if you want to shoot in landscape, you got to turn the camera into portrait orientation.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
A little confusing there.
Yeah. I think it would throw people off, but at the same time, like if your goal is to shoot these pictures and then scan them and put them on Instagram, maybe having the portrait mode makes sense. Kind of weird though.
I love it. I've been really wanting a half frame camera because like you put 36 exposures in there. That's 72 pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. But on the other hand, you can barely get through a normal roll of film.
It's true. I can't. But maybe I'll be more open to it. And what's really fun with half frame cameras is if you treat it like a whole frame. And so you shoot one picture of a thing, and then you shoot like another angle of the same thing, and then you treat your pictures like pairs.
Yeah.
And then it's like art.
And because if you did that, would you develop and scan them and stuff as single frames, or would you still scan them and then combine them later?
It kind of depends upon what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Up to you. After you develop it, it's just a giant roll. Depends on how you cut it and scan it.
Yeah. It's just a giant roll.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think those are called like duplex or something. There's a name for it.
That's a cool idea.
I love it. It's so artsy and fantastic. I would shoot everything in pairs if I had a half frame camera, which I feel like I need this.
That escalated quickly. Although I'm also not surprised.
Okay, I've been like really wanting a half frame camera, and I've been thinking about buying an Olympus Pen F, and this I could buy this instead.
I mean, this thing's brand new.
It's so cool.
Pretty cool.
It's so cool. Okay, so we talked about the manual winding. All right, I think I have a picture of the dial on top. I don't. I'm gonna pull up a picture of the dial so I can talk you through all the modes on this thing. Can you tell I'm excited?
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't, print out a folder of pictures to bring me.
Because analog. Okay, we talked about the ISO thing. We talked about the exposure. Okay, so it has the wheel, the shutter button, and then the other dial on top is the mode dial. And this has a white section, a yellow section, and an auto. I'm going to turn this so you can see it. Boop.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice color coding there.
So the yellow, because this thing has a built-in flash, are your flash modes.
Oh, okay.
And so you get program, you get night mode, and you get flash. Well, I guess the flash just means flash. So you get night mode and program in the yellow. Night mode is for shooting at night.
Wow. They really, I'm sure they workshopped that name for a long time.
Okay, so just to be clear, like there's a night mode without a flash, and there's a night mode with a flash. And what that does is, let me see, I actually wrote
It's probably like the slow sync flash or something.
It forces the shutter speed to like a low but reasonable setting. Sorry, I lost my notes whenever I switched my tabs away. My iPad needs more RAM, Daniel. Can you order some?
Yeah, you just have to download it, I think.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Is that like in the App Store or is it somewhere else?
No, man, you got to sideload that for sure.
Okay, yeah. Let me sideload some more RAM here. And I guess I didn't write. Okay, yeah. So anyways, it basically like lowers the shutter speed and kind of forces the ISO open to know that like you're shooting in dark. So think the Fujifilm Natura, like that old film camera that you're really familiar with.
Well, you talked about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it has a night mode for shooting at night, which is going to slow your shutter speed down. It has a program, which is basically just going to shoot auto, but you can say flash or no flash. And then it has a straight up auto mode where it decides if it's going to use a flash.
Oh no, I don't like that.
And then
I hate because it always decides it wants to use the flash. When do you ever take a picture in auto mode and it's like, no flash today? It's always like the least appropriate situation. It's like, what about a flash right now?
whenever it's like Mad Brad outside, you gotta be able to have those flash options though.
Uh-huh.
Flash on film. You remember those pictures that I took at that party with the?
I remember. Yeah,
those were awesome. Anyways,
there's something.
There's a mode called bokeh.
Of course there is.
Bokeh.
Yeah.
And okay, so what this thing does is it tries to use the depth of field to help you focus. It's a manual focus lens, but it's like using the depth of field. We'll talk about that in a second. So if you just really, it's going to favor for like light reasons, higher f-stops, and for focus reasons, higher f-stops. But if you just really want that low depth of field shot, you flip it to bokeh mode, and it makes sure that the aperture is 3.5.
So it kind of like locks that. It's sort of like an aperture priority mode.
Essentially, yeah. To like the widest aperture, which 3.5 on half frame, you're not really going to get that much depth of field.
Yeah, I mean it's okay because we said that half frame is close to the size of APS-C.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like I can get some depth of field on APS-C at 3.5 as long as there's a lot of depth.
Yeah, you can get a little bit there, and it's nice to have an option to force the aperture open.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are all the modes. The shutter on this thing is like 1/350, and it's a leaf shutter. So 2 thumbs up for leaf shutter.
Yeah,
that's awesome. 1 thumb down for 1/350.
It seems like it's gonna make it hard to shoot pictures outside.
Yeah, my AE1 1/1000.
Yeah,
and even then, I'm still shooting at like 5.6 all the time outside on like ISO 100.
Yeah, on a sunny day. On a sunny day.
Yeah, like you're cut a little bit on light, like just a smidge, just for it being half frame. But even still, 1/350 is pretty slow. So like, not great, but okay. But I think that they did that because they knew that they're going to be cranking that aperture anyway.
Yeah.
So a little more on the shutter speed before we talk about the focusing mode, like how this thing focuses, because that and the aperture are all kind of really, really interesting. So it's an f3.5 25 millimeter lens, which has you pretty close to say like 37 to 40 millimeter, which is a pretty good spot for this kind of camera where it's like a fixed lens. Yep. So you're looking at 25 millimeter f3.5. We mentioned the built-in flash. It has TTL flash, and it locks it out at 1/125th of a second for the shutter whenever you're using the flash.
It's pretty slow, but I mean,
it's about right though. Like, cause like it's going to be slow, so you get like the movement, the cool lighty stuff behind.
True.
But then the flash is going to freeze your motion.
Yeah.
So it's good. Fair. It's good. Like you go into flash mode, nice and slow, opens up to 3.5. You're going to get decent light.
Right.
If you're not using a fast enough film. So I think that all makes total sense. Let's talk about the lens. Okay. So on the lens itself, there are the following images, because this is a zone focus lens. It's manual focus, but it's zone focus. There's a picture of a mountain. There's a picture of a group of people, a picture of 2 people, a picture of 1 people, a fork and a knife, and a flower.
A fork and a knife, huh?
Yeah.
I know what that's for.
You're supposed to use those to know what you're taking a picture of / the focal distance.
Interesting. It's kind of clever, but I sure would love to see some numbers next to those.
I would also strongly prefer the numbers.
Like, why not have both, right?
I mean,
have an infinity symbol next to mountain, have a 5 next to the 1 person, whatever they are. Like, just have both.
I mean, I'm looking at this thing, and the lens does not stick out past the grip.
Yeah, that is correct.
There is no room to put the numbers.
I see.
They would be very tiny numbers.
Yeah.
Which is probably the driving factor.
Well, what they
here.
could do is because you really just kind of like it's the kind of thing you need to know like once. So it's not that big of a problem. They could put them on the bottom.
Oh, that would be cool.
Like have another. They have a little tick mark on this that tells you like which one's selected. They could put another tick mark on the bottom. Put the numbers on the bottom.
Sure.
Then you could just flip the camera over and see.
I love it. I love that idea. What also is super interesting is that when you look through the viewfinder, imagine a rectangle, but at the bottom of a rectangle, there's a little notch for another tiny cutout. That tiny cutout at the bottom of the viewfinder, you can see which mode you're in.
Oh, that's kind of clever.
Through the viewfinder.
I like that.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Very well thought through. So these are infinity focus for the mountain, and then you have a couple ranges of like 10 feet to whatever, and then maybe a little closer, like 6 to so many feet, and then you have a single person who's in front of you, call like 3 to 6 feet, and then you have 2 macro modes. So like the flower is like a really close, like 12-inch,
sure,
and the food's like a 2 to 3 feet kind of thing. So you have 2 macro modes and then 4 focus modes, and I only heard this from one outlet, but from what I've heard, it seems like the camera will use its light meter and use its like understanding like what you're taking a picture of and try to adjust the aperture to help with the focus. And so while you're still just setting it in a zone area, it may choose to bump your aperture up in order to get the thing in focus.
Oh, interesting.
And it's been fairly successful for most people who have been shooting with this. The hit rates on it are reasonably good, and the meter is pretty decent.
Huh.
Also, the meter is located on the lens. Like, not all cameras figured this out back in the day.
Yeah.
And so if you put a filter on your camera, and it's not covering up the meter, like you put an ND on it, you're kind of like out of luck.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But for this one, you put a filter on this thing, the meter's behind the filter.
Nice.
Awesome. They thought through it. Okay, back to my list here. So we talked about how big it is. We talked about that thing. Actually, I didn't write down the dimensions of this thing. How big is this thing, actually? It seems like it's compact.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, because I don't know how much the mechanics of a film camera would bulk it up. You know,
it's
like,
gotta
there's no
be-
electronics, but I don't know what they need.
It has to be at least as thick and tall as a film, a canister of 35 millimeter film.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thicker and taller than that, but yeah, that's a good starting frame of reference, at least.
Frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately 290 grams, and it is 127 by 78 by 52, which is give or take the size of like a G9.
So what is
No,
this?
S9.
This thing's half the size and weight of that Instax 400 wide.
Oh yeah, it's way smaller than that. Okay, I like how they're doing the focus thing. I like that it's half frame. Manually load your film.
Sure.
Talked about the lens. 3.5, I feel like that's good. Roughly 35 millimeter equivalent. Awesome. Viewfinder. It's got the 2 frame lines. So you can do you have to learn how to frame it. This was something that I didn't realize whenever I started shooting with rangefinders, is like you have 2 frame lines inside and one's for close and one's for far.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to know which one to use to frame.
Yeah, I feel like intuitively you would just think, well, I'm looking through it, so like that's going to be the shot. But
yeah, I think maybe one of the other challenges with this camera, especially for people who are just getting into film stuff, is you're not ever looking through the lens. It's rangefinder style, so it's like you kind of just have to hope or trust the camera that it's in focus, or know whenever you need to maybe make adjustments to your exposure using the compensation or something.
Yeah.
So like that gets a little weird, but maybe it's okay.
I mean, you're shooting for the vibes, right? So a little out of focus, not a big deal.
I mean, that's a really good point.
Framing off a little bit,
I guess
not a big deal.
That could be like a trick that people learn, is like you want a blurry shot, just make sure you set it to the fork and knife.
Oh man, people are for sure going to do that.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be like the hack. You're gonna see it on TikTok. Hey, you know what the fork and knife means? It means blurry photos.
Yep. That's the cinematic mode.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Okay. It takes a CR2 lithium battery, which is the same battery as my Canon AE1.
Oh, okay.
Which is also impossible to find at a Walgreens.
Yeah, I guess I've heard of CR123, but not CR. You said CR2.
CR2. It's like a little tiny canister battery.
Yeah, that's strange.
I took one of those out of the AE1, which it still worked. Like it still had juice in it, and it said Radio Shack on it.
Oh man. Somebody at that Radio Shack upsold whoever owned that camera on batteries.
Mm-hmm.
It's their favorite thing to sell.
Yep. Anyway, that battery's just gonna last forever. You buy one, you're never gonna need another one.
Yeah, film camera's not going to use much power. So
Yeah. Okay. So last little thing here, talking about the construction, magnesium top and bottom. So it's not like super robust, but that's a nice construction. It's not plastic. It's
what
metal.
would you have preferred to see?
Nothing. That's exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
It's nice, light, easy. It's not like, I don't know, gold or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty wide gulf between.
I feel like magnesium is a
and gold.
pretty common
construction
type.
I don't
for
see anything
cameras.
wrong with that. Seems like
No,
a
I
good
think it's about right.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the whole camera, Daniel.
I mean, so you kind of knew this was coming. You said you've been following them for a while.
We didn't know what they were going to release, though. We didn't know it was going to be half frame.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how they were going to try to sell it. We didn't know that it wasn't going to have any manual modes. And some people who saw this come out are a little annoyed that it's not this isn't really geared towards an enthusiast. It's not like a film enthusiast camera.
Well, not having the manual mode kind of answers that question, I feel like.
Right. So it's the people who are just I only shoot film or whatever. They probably want something that's 35 millimeter. They probably want some more kind of advanced features.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you jump straight into it and go for that camera, that's not what's going to make the money and improve this market. I think that you need the people who are interested with it, like maybe it's a lark, maybe they get into it. I think that that's who you have to target, and that's exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah.
I think $500 is the high end of what is reasonable for that kind of purchase, but I also don't think it's outrageous.
Yeah, I
I
mean, when I think about this camera, like to me, it kind of feels like X106, but more hipster.
Yeah.
Like, I want a fun camera that has a look to it, and I'm just going to shoot casual pictures on it on my trip or whatever. And I don't want to spend time dealing with all these manual settings. And so it's just a casual, fun camera. And I do think there are people out there that'd be willing to spend $500 for that.
I feel like I'm possibly one of those people.
Well, I was going to ask, I mean, because you kind of known this was coming. You said some of the things in it were a surprise. I mean, it seems like you're pretty excited about it. So I guess that surprises me a little bit just because you're into cameras. You do a Camera Gear podcast. Like, I would have maybe said you were a film enthusiast. So why are you interested in it?
I'm interested in it because I like varieties of cameras, and I have my Minolta AF1, right? AF2? Himatic AF2 and AF1. Crap.
Don't even know what you have. Maybe you're not a film
It's
enthusiast.
the Himatic AF2. And then I have an AE1, which is like my full manual camera that I've inherited. And like those would kind of fill different roles. And I really want a half frame camera. And this is like just here's a super portable, easy to use, brand new half frame camera.
Yeah.
Super pumped about that. I also want like a really small, tiny camera, which the Rolly 35 is getting closer and closer to being a real thing. And I want more of these things to exist. And so I'm like, well, this is really cool. I like everything about it. I feel like I should buy it to support the cause, which I feel like everybody should buy this camera to support the cause.
Pentax is just overnight is going to become, the most popular camera company, like blowing everybody else out of the water on sales, all because you have encouraged them on this podcast.
I want these to sell out, Daniel.
Yeah.
I want them to sell out so bad because it means more film cameras, which is what we need.
Is it?
Because that means more film, and maybe they'll bring back some of the cool film stocks.
Then maybe they will. I like the sound of you getting all these cameras because it's more things that I can make fun of you for going through airport security with.
I'm never traveling with film again.
But you need to buy my XD5 before you buy all these other cameras.
Yeah, sure. Valid. True. So I'm excited about this mostly because it exists. Like just by virtue of it existing, it's awesome.
It's cool that they're putting the time and money and marketing effort into a brand new film camera in 2024. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the segment, I think it's a bold move. And I mean, I like to see people doing interesting things. So.
I think that there's a disagreement that you could have on every single part and every single decision on this camera. And when I look at it, I agree with every decision that they made. I think half frame, absolutely the right choice for trying to get people in double. It cuts the cost of your film in half. Like for per picture cost, instead of being 20 cents, now it's 10 cents. That's great. It's zone focus. They didn't have to deal with like an autofocus system and the extra mechanics there. It's just straight up zone focus. They put the light meter in the right spot. It's a good light meter. It's manually winding. Love that. It goes to ISO 3200. It's simple, but it's like has all of the right choices that I feel like make this the perfect throw it in your bag film camera.
Sure, I can see that.
Like I don't just like carry my Canon AE1 with me because it's a lot. Like it's heavy. It's metal. I guess it's not necessarily. Is it metal construction? It feels like metal. It's just so heavy.
Yeah, it feels like a big effort to take it with you.
Right. And so like whenever I shoot with that camera, it's because I'm shooting pictures that I probably care more about rather than just kind of casually shooting. But casual shooting is my favorite kind of shooting because I love capturing the moment and just like taking pictures of life. And which is why I'm obsessed with point and shoots. And we've talked about point and shoots to death. And the most point and shooty camera I have is my Minolta. And I love that Minolta. What is a Chonko? That's a big camera.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, a point and shoot film camera, like this is it. You get 72 shots. It's half frame. Like It can do all the things, but it's also not so complicated that it demands you to spend the time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with film is like it takes so much time to like get the shot, especially if you're having to like dial in the focus and like make sure that all of your settings are right. This kind of lets you not worry too much about that. You can get into it if you need to. If you decide you want to shoot in like bokeh mode or flash mode, you can kind of make those choices. But it also gives you the opportunity to just kind of like point and shoot and still get a decent image.
It's just you in the film, man.
Yeah, sure.
Just you in the film making pictures.
I know. I feel like this lets you speed up or slow down
Yeah.
the shooting on film in a way that is more I don't know, appealing in a way, or makes it more accessible. Is kind of how I feel.
Yeah. Oh, it's clearly what they're going for. So I mean, it sounds like you think those features basically hit the mark on doing that, which is good.
Like if I imagine myself leaving the house and just kind of like, oh, we're gonna like drive to, I don't know, San Antonio for some stupid reason, or we're gonna like go do a thing, or we're gonna go on a hike today. I could probably put this in my pocket or like throw it in my bag, and it's gonna weigh nothing, and I'm not gonna necessarily need to worry about it. It's gonna get 72 shots. I'm not gonna need it. That's all the pictures.
That's enough.
That's all the pictures I'm gonna take that day. Even if I was shooting on digital, I probably wouldn't shoot more than 100 photos. 36, I'm thinking, do I need a second roll with me? And I have to like change rolls out there, and like that's a lot of film. It's just one roll. So I don't know. For me, this just feels perfect.
Yeah. So is it out yet, or when is it coming out?
It is imminently coming out. So like they announced it, they put it in every reviewers. There are like so many reviewers got this thing.
So potentially by the time people hear this, it might be out.
Right. Let me look up real quick. June 18th is pleased to announce blah, 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 blah. I don't know when this thing actually ships.
So maybe soon, but he's leaning closer to the iPad in extreme focus mode here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here specifically. So I assume that pre-orders are imminent, but...
So do you think they're going to sell out?
Like,
Are you worried they're going to sell out?
Am I worried? I'm worried they're not going to sell out.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And also, like, I have to buy your Fuji camera, and I have to buy a Synology now.
Yeah, that's a lot of
and
money.
So I'm not going to be like shelling out $500 for another film camera anytime soon.
Fair point.
Which is why I need this to sell out so that I can maybe like buy it on the next round.
I see.
Also, the Rolly 35 that's rumored to be coming, just like inch by inch, is going to release between like $600 and $800.
Yeah.
And I can't buy a Rolly 35 and this camera.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
But I do feel like I need a half frame camera more than I need a Rolly 35.
I think I saw something on the Rolly 35 recently. So, I mean, that seems like it's still happening.
They released pictures shot with the camera.
That's what I saw. Okay.
Yeah. That was super duper neat.
Yeah. So kind of,
available for pre-order?
I mean, it's kind of shaping up to be a competition then between, is like how many people can there be that want to spend, between $500 and $800 on a film camera? Like these two cameras are going to take a little bit of market from each other. I wonder which one's going to prove to be more popular.
I hope that's not the case. I hope that they kind of build on each other and it makes people excited for film cameras and they both do well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably better for all of us if there's more competition, but I guess let's see.
I'm just so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so happy about this.
You seem excited.
Ugh, this is great.
I think you're happier about this than you have been about any recent Fuji release.
I still haven't developed the film from our trip, which is shameful.
It really is.
I love it. Like I like shooting on film. I like slowing down, taking the pictures, and it's so stupid and like everything about it's dumb. It takes more time. It's harder. It's just all this energy and effort, and the pictures are worse. And it's like there's not a good reason to do it, except that it's an enjoyable process.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it has to be about the process or it's not worth doing it probably.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's like, if you like that part of photography, like film might be for you.
Mm-hmm.
And film coming back alive is awesome because like for so many years it felt dead.
Yeah.
And film companies keep dropping off films. And it's like soon there won't be any, but we're looking at a possible renaissance because like we got a new film emulsion, we got a new film camera, and it's like you got to kind of fan the flame. Just like, right? Just come on, bring it back.
I've got nothing to add to that. That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter at CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.